Whose show is this really?
I don't even know.
Whose show is this?
I mean, it's going to be my show.
Well, we were supposed to have, what was it?
We're supposed to have a podcast. We have a podcast coming out soon, so just look out for it. I don't know what it's going to be called yet, but we've bounced some ideas off each other.
JP Ray Ray in the morning.
Come on. JP and Ray Ray. I don't know if it's going to be in the morning. It's just...
It ain't in the morning. We can't even get up before 8. Hot Mike with Ray White. Hot Mike with Ray White. Jessica Peterson. Tell the people who you are and what you do.
Jessica Peterson. I'm the Executive Director of Enlightened Theatrics. I also serve as the founding board secretary for the Be Blac Foundation. What else do I do? I love working with kids. I'm a musician, performer, social justice warrior. I mean, all around just like out here living.
It's become apparent to me that in every space you try to make it a point that you're a part of the Beehive. What is it about the Beehive that really excites you and gets you like riled up and engaged? Like, why do you gotta let people know that it's Beyonce all day and you put everybody on mute?
First, just coming out hot with the hot questions. I mean, but these are the answers people want to know. Beyonce is... Gosh, she performs at a level, she tells a story. And I think sometimes performers, it's easy just to sing a song, but she's a storyteller. And so all that to say, I just went to her concert in Seattle, and she is the storyteller of our time. I think for the stories, and when I talk about like her navigating stuff that happened with the affair, and then how she told the story after that, and then the Renaissance album, if you've listened to it, the story she's telling there, even her... formation. Like, I mean, just the stories about slavery and people of color and where she grew up in Texas. She's a storyteller, but she's also gorgeous and so talented. Period. That's
all you gotta know. But I appreciate the fact that you talked about storytelling, because that really plays a major role in the connection that we have, that you have, especially, right, to music, to performance, to identity, to the way that we show up, or you want to show up, and to be able to see that on display, especially in such a glamorous and beautiful way. I can get it. I understand. I'm Beehive adjacent.
Come on.
I love it. But as we talk about storytelling, we talk about performance and theatrics. This is the area that you own. This is your domain. Whenever I imagine those who watch theater and, musical performance and all that, you could do a heavy critiquing, and you do a heavy analysis and critique of those areas, because this is your world. This is what you live. What is it about the theater that folks who may not be a part of that world, what is it about it that we need to just understand and embody and see, or how do we see it the way that you see it? I guess is what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think so for my history, I grew up a musician. My degree's in music, bachelor's in music. So I've sung my whole life. And I think the theater element came in later, in high school, into college, and now at the theater that I run. But I think something that I am learning more as an actor, someone who loves the arts, and trying to communicate, is we are all impacted and we all benefit from the arts, the culture of the arts. I would argue with anybody who can't name their favorite song, or when they hear a song, the moment that it reminds them of when they're brought back into a song or a show or a movie, right? And the music that fuels those stories that we're talking about, storytelling. And so I think the one thing that I'm trying to communicate is that everyone has, we all get to participate in what the arts can be for us. And it looks different depending on if I always tell my actors, you're on the stage, but the people who are in the audience get to participate in a different way. And sometimes that causes us to react. And those reactions are not always bad. Those reactions are relevant because it's rising up something that we didn't know maybe existed. And I think that we have to be in more spaces that highlight those talents, whether it's musical theater, whether it's bands, whether it's choir. We have to be in those spaces to be like, oh, what's rising up in me? In the theater world, it is the closest thing to, we've been talking about belonging. I know that space is the one safe space that students feel the most seen. because they're storytellers. So for that one moment, for me as an actor, I am not myself. I'm telling the story of the playwright's words, the music. And I think that with that, it takes discernment. It takes an understanding of the character. It takes an understanding of what the director is asking of you. But then you get to interpret that based off of what you're given, of who you're portraying. And I think that that takes us out of ourselves. Yeah.
I love the fact that like the work that you do and what you create for the audience, I mean, it's really an immersive experience. And as you stated, it's an immersive experience for those who are participating, who are engaging with it, but also those on stage, you know, those who are part of every aspect of it, because it's more than just being able to recite the words or to get the right note when you're on stage, but you're people who are writing it or people who are doing the stage setup, you know, like everybody has a role to play when creating this immersive space. Something that you just stated though, and I was trying to think of something off the cuff, but I'm gonna ask you to think off the cuff so it gives me more time to think about it. But you just talk about a song that takes you back. A song that when you think about it, it immerses you into a new world. You get, you know, you smell the sweet smells of the ocean or the river or nightclub, whatever. I don't, you know, no judgment. Yeah. There's a few of those. Yep. If you were to identify a song at the moment right now, what song would that be? And what does it take you back to?
So I think the song that takes me back is Somewhere Over the Rainbow from The Wizard of Oz. And that actually is a pivotal moment in my life because it was my role. So I actually got the role of Dorothy when I was in high school. I was a sophomore and I beat out 4 seniors for that role. Yes. And I almost didn't audition. Well, I auditioned, but I was not going to read for the role of Dorothy because in my head, I'm thinking, well, I'm not a senior and I haven't been in the program long. And I was giving myself reasons why I couldn't and not actually allowing myself to feel confident in my talent. And at that age, I don't think I ever really fully understood how talented I was for my age, right? And so I got the role, but what it reminded me of, first my dad would say, like, he told me, right? He was like, go out for the biggest role. Like, you always go out for the biggest role. But here's what I realized as an adult now. My fear had everything to do with the fact that I didn't have people breathing positive affirmations into me about what I'm capable of. Right? The adults that I had a few adults in my circle who saw me and believed that I could be bigger than what I was. But at the level at that age, for the kids who were then telling me that I wasn't, and the narrative I allowed that to write, I recognized just how important it is. Oh, makes me emotional. Just how important it is for adults to really see kids and to really walk alongside of them in those times, because it could be the breaking point from a kid really thriving, then shying away from something they never thought that they could ever experience. Yeah.
That's a way better answer than me thinking of some Drake song. I was thinking, like, what's a Drake song that really...
We could talk about the breakup song that, like, put me into tears if we want to go that route, but I don't want people knowing all my business, okay?
We don't need that. I really value your answer and love it because, yes, I was going to take it a whole different angle. But, no, I love it. And I love the fact that, again, like you spoke about, there is a lot of emotional connection and even just like the ability to see yourself as somebody who can take on a role that's quote unquote big, right, for the player, for the performance, and the people in your life who help guide you and speak that truth to you, that you do have the talent, you do have the skill sets and capabilities. Doesn't matter the age or doesn't matter what quote unquote rank you are in the school or in the organization or whatnot, but you do have what it takes to possess that. And sometimes it's really hard for us to see that for ourselves, and we do need the people around us to be that. And what I appreciate, because you talked about the couple hats that you wear, just a couple, maybe 2 hands and toes. But you really try to do that and be that now, and on being on this side of the school system, right, for the youth in our community. So could you talk a little bit about what does that, or what are some of the experiences that you're hoping to create for the youth that you're a part of, whether in Enlightened Theatrics or Young Life or whatever it is, you know, in the school system or what have you? Like, what are the experiences that you're hoping to create for them and how you're stepping into those worlds?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I'm trying to, so right now, the hats and youth I wear is I volunteer really at a lot of the schools. So I just got done vocal directing Chicago for North Salem High School. And I work a lot with the McKay Thespian Troupe and the choirs. But I also mentor some girls that I worked with in Young Life. And I think the conversations that I'm trying to empower the next generation is the ability to advocate for themselves and ask questions. Because I think sometimes it's easy for us to assume that if we ask a question, it's because we're stupid. Like we already like, well, I have a question, but I don't want to be the person to call that out. And I think that the younger generation, though the vibe is, or Gen Zers, or like they act like they have it all figured out. They're having to puff themselves up to speak into things that they understand because they're living it, but they don't always know how to ask the next question after that for the next 10, 15, 20 years. Right? They're talking about right now. They're talking about their lived experience as a middle schooler now. They're talking about their lived experience as a high schooler now. But have they given themselves the opportunity to look 5, 10 years down the road? And if they haven't, do they feel comfortable enough asking the adults that are in the room with that power? Because that is really what it comes down to. And I was at Waldo and I said that. I said, the only stupid question is the one that you don't ask. So ask the questions, because the educators in this space, they will advocate for you as far as you allow them to, but there are some who have capacity to do more than that. But you have to let them know that that's what you want, and don't be ashamed to ask for that. And if they're not the ones, promise you there's somebody in your school that is.
And I think that's a good word for the adults in the room as well, to be able to recognize too. One, remember, you were once a kid too. So there are probably a lot of things that you wish you would have known then that you now know now, right? So how do you have the lens to see the youth in our community or youth around you, and to be able to take the initiative or just the extra space to allow those questions to be asked, or just to be like, hey, you need to be considerate of this, or what questions do you have, or how can we support, like being able to have a look and a lens to support that, because we were once those kids, or we were once those people who either we had people advocating for us, or we wish we had some people to advocate for us. So while we are encouraging, and I love that you're in that space of saying, hey, like you need to keep asking those questions, because you need to understand and advocate for yourself. We need more people like you, right, to be in those spaces, and to also say, how can I make sure that you have what you need to be successful today in the next 10 to 15 years as well.
I think what I'd add is, like, on the reverse of that is that not everyone's going to have a strong voice to want to advocate for themselves. So I think as adults, the awareness of recognizing who are the ones who can easily ask the questions and advocate, and who are the ones who are gun shy, right? And or maybe haven't been given the tools, because I think that I have challenging conversations with adults now when adults say, well, they're not going to listen to us. And I'm like, I want to challenge that. I don't think it's not about them wanting to listen, because they don't know your true stories as when you were younger. So we have to be willing to be vulnerable and humble about our truths, about where I was when I was 13 or 14 or 15. Because newsflash, I was not here making the best decisions as a high school student. It just was what it was. You know what I mean? And I learned, but I was able to come back from that. And so I think that I want to acknowledge that everyone's going to speak in, not everyone's going to speak up. So we have to be aware, because we are the ones with the power and the space and the capacity to not only process things at a further or a bigger amount because of our age and our experience, but just recognizing those cues, you know what I mean? And being able to see those. And if it's not us, and as an adult, if it's like, I'm not the one, who is the one? Who is the person who should be in those spaces? And do they have the tools that they need to advocate on behalf of our next generation?
That's good. That's good. As we look a little bit, I'm going to touch on another hat and tie that with our community that we both embody, right? So, or we embody a lot of communities. But, one of the questions I love to ask our guests on the show essentially is, what is their hope for Salem? And I recognize that you and I both wear a similar hat with the Be Blac Foundation, and want to really unite the Salem Black community, whether through business, through youth, through parents, through just leadership, and helping really develop the next generation of leaders within this space. But, as you are in your seat and how you have been positioned in Salem and, from the inception till now, like, what is your hope for Salem, or what do you see are opportunities that we can take the next step in helping make Salem continue to be a better place and a belonging place?
Yeah.
Just big question.
Asking me the questions like where I have to think about, not the things I'm like, these are things I know. So my hope for Salem, I think, is a shared awareness of the realities of all of our communities. I think too often the thought that I'm given from a lot of my counterparts are, well, I didn't know that was a problem. I didn't know that existed. Well, and it's an unawareness. It's I didn't know that happened, or that doesn't happen here. That doesn't happen in this community. We're different. And that is an annoying, frustrating answer. And so I think like my hope is for that to dissipate. Because just because we don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Just because it's not our reality doesn't mean it's not somebody else's reality. And I think from our training today, he talked a lot about that, about what that looks like, of like when we are blind to things because we're focused on something else. And so it's easy to miss the things that are happening in our backyard. So that's my hope, is that that dissipates, that there's that assumption that things don't happen here because they don't see it. And I think I think in my multiple hats, the hard, heavy lift right now, what I think grappling with, contemplating, is having to continue to lift. Not because I don't want to, but because I think about the people before me who they're like, I'm tired, I've been doing this, and not seeing something change. Like, I think for me, I am trying to lean into what I can do, and not allowing the things that aren't happening to discourage me from wanting to lift and have conversations. And I think, I've sat in a lot of rooms, like you said, and even the conversations I'm able to come back to, whether it's in government or nonprofit or whatnot, I always end up saying, how can I then better support? Because I know that I'm not doing the most. I know that I'm actually doing the least amount because of my capacity, because of all the things I'm doing. Like, I know I could be doing more, but I also want to identify those things and how they look in the big picture, because I also know sometimes my own bias and what I think how things should move is not the reality of what the people who are in the rooms trying to have the conversations need from me in the moment. Right? So like being strategic, but then like honest about what I can lift and not letting that weigh me down.
I kind of want to challenge a little bit of that, because I hope you don't feel that, because you are doing the most. You're doing a lot out here. Don't downplay that, all the hats you just talked about. But because I think that's where a lot of folks, I imagine, feel a sense of like apprehension to engage, because they feel that they aren't doing, or they're not a part of the rooms. They don't have the connection. They don't have the resources. But it's like, no, you do. Yeah. You do have influence. You do have power. You do have access. And, again, like we talked about in the training, by the way, Big McBride came out in Salem, Week of Belonging.
Initiative. Come on, Empower Initiative. Yep. Look it up.
Shout out. We'll put that in the show notes. But people are strategically placed in the community and have certain level of access, and, either a lot or a little. And the idea is, what could we do with what we have, and how do we make an impact with what we have collectively? Yeah. So you, again, by being in the schools, by running a nonprofit, by having the multiple hats and the multiple connection points that you have in the workforce, and as well as just being a student of the Salem Kaiser School District, like, you have a lot of wisdom and you have a lot of influence. And could we all do more? Sure. But you're doing a hell of a lot. You know what I'm saying? You're doing some work out here. And I'm like, dang, Jessica's out here doing some more things. So I just hope that you don't feel like, and this is something I would want people to grapple with themselves, right? Because we could easily weigh ourselves down thinking that, I'm not doing what so-and-so is doing in that community, or we're not there yet. Sure. We're not there yet. We probably will never ever get quote unquote there, wherever that looks like. But let's not negate what we're currently doing today and how we're making an impact in the students you are engaging with, and the type of empowerment that you are giving them to see themselves, to have to utilize their voice, to sing their voice, right? Because you ought to be the next vocal director. You ought to be the vocal director of the next Beyonce out here coming out of Salem. That'd be pretty dope. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's good. No, that's a good reminder. I think it's easy to, when you want things to change, it's easy to, we're our hardest critics. And I'm very hard on myself. Everyone who will watch this and knows me knows that I'm very hard on myself. So it's a good reminder that, and I think that's also a humbling reminder for anybody who's doing any type of service work. We may not always see the outcome. And as someone of faith and someone who I'm like, okay, God, like I may not always know, you know what I mean? And that's okay, because it's like, I'm not doing it to know, I'm not doing it to be seen. And yet today there was somebody I ran into who I haven't seen in a while, who I've gotten to do life with in a sense, a young adult. And I'm like, wait, but then there are glimmers where I'm like, oh, I do see it play out. Right. And it may look different than what I thought it was going to look like when I went into the work or had that coffee or, ice cream date with whoever that person was. But I'm like, oh, no, but it's here and it happened. So thank you for the reminder, because I think it's just hard. It's easy to get discouraged when I think in my mind, I want things to move at a different pace. I want everyone to just like lace up those shoes tight and put all their armor on and get out there. You know what I mean? And it's like, wait, that's not everyone's calling. That's not everyone's drive. Right. And so like allow people to be where they're at and challenge the ones who maybe are not and hold them accountable. Like accountability needs to happen for those who could be doing more, but are choosing to not see.
And I imagine, and again, today or this week, and the conversations that we've had, off camera and beyond this week, and it is even this week of having the right language and shared language to be able to see people and to have people be seen, and what's the process of doing that. That is definitely work that we all need to do, as part of our own individual awareness and seeing ways that we can impact that in our institutions. And then a common theme, and I hear that quite a bit in your story, is the relationships that are being built in these shared spaces, in these proximities, in these events. And it's not just to help get somebody from point A to point B, but it's really help them like feel equipped to then take the next step and to see themselves to be successful, and you being that guiding person to help them navigate through the life's challenges, because we all need that, right?
Yeah.
That's support. I love that. Where can people find you?
I am on Instagram, singer_Jess, if you want to connect that way. EnlightenedTheatrics.org is our website. We are getting ready for James and the Giant Peach. That opens December 8th. I was like, what day is it? We're a month out. I know, we're out there. So if you want to come see a show, but Instagram is probably the easiest way to follow me. And then obviously when you see me out in the community, if you see me out in the community, just say hello. I'd love to connect with whoever I can.
That's a good reminder, because if you say James and the Giant Peach is coming out soon, that means I need to get this episode out by like yesterday.
Like, it should have already been posted.
It should have been posted. Send it out. Get it out. Well, hey, y'all. JP and Ray Ray in whatever time of the day is going to be a thing that we happen pretty soon. Yeah, probably not in the mornings.
Not in the morning, but I mean, I don't know. Like, I want some comments. Like, let us know. Should we start a podcast? Like, I just feel like we got this juice. Like, I need the community input of what that looks like. JP and Ray Ray on the mic.
JP and Ray Ray on the mic. Drop it in the chat if you all want to see this dynamic more, so let us know. But Jessica, I appreciate you. Thank you for being a part of this show, but more importantly, the work that you're doing in the community. I really do appreciate it.
Hey, I'm glad to do life with you in this city.
Well, let's go. There it is. Yes!